What's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. Here we are with another reaction video, and we're gonna find out how Tata conquered British bands. I hope they explain what Tata is because I'm not sure. Before we jump in though, if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, ring notification bell, get a video a thumbs up so it gets suggested. Let's do this.
Every major country has a brand that's synonymous with its national identity. In India, it's Tata Group.
Tata Group, India's largest conglomerate. Tata Group has officially taken over Air India today.
The 155-year-old conglomerate is India's leader in consumer goods, IT, steel, and automobiles. And for most of their history, they've focused on the Indian consumer. That means hiring Indians, selling them products, and sponsoring the local cricket league. But their enormous success has increased their ambition and led them to expand their sites internationally. And their strategy has been to buy iconic brands from a different country, India's former colonial rulers, the British.
Imagine what the Indians must have felt like on that day.
In 2008, Tata Group acquired two iconic car brands, Jaguar and Land Rover. But that wasn't the first time that India's largest conglomerate had added an iconic British brand to its portfolio. In this video, we'll break down the brands that Tata has taken over, the success that they've found post-acquisition, and the other Indian companies following in their footsteps. But first, we need to talk macroeconomics. India's economy has grown substantially faster than the British economy over the last 30 years. Over the last 3 decades, Indian gross domestic product has grown by an average of 6.4% every single year. But during that same period, British GDP has grown by just 2.1%, and they've been forced to pivot their economy away from manufacturing towards services. Back in 1993, India's GDP was just half the size of the UK. But by 2023, it's estimated that India's economy will be 10% larger. India's rapid economic growth has been driven by 3 major factors. First, their population is large and relatively young, meaning that there's lots of workers able to fill roles, build products, and provide services. A large portion of those workers contribute to the second driver, which is India's middle class. With more Indians than ever having disposable income to spend on goods and services, India's economy can start to feed on itself. And finally, the third driver is government policy. Over the last 3 decades, India has been relatively business-friendly, not getting in the way of the growth that's basically been baked into their situation. Meanwhile, in the United Kingdom,
I feel like, it's like watching these videos and I see like India's growth and their rise in so many different videos. You just see them rising at such a fast pace. Like, it's truly incredible. And I'm glad he broke down some of those reasons. The young workforce, right? Very large workforce, and also young, and building that middle class up so they can purchase consumer goods, right? Put that money back into the economy. It's just, and now they've surpassed the UK in GDP, and I think that's truly incredible, and they not done. I think India is just getting started. India is about to continue to grow and boom and become a superpower, and it's incredible that I'm watching. I get to react to a lot of these videos as it starts happening. Like, that's truly phenomenal to me. Shout out Tata. Went over, bought these UK brands, Jaguar, Land Rover, and he's going to talk about all the success that they've acquired with those brands post-acquisition. But this is just truly incredible.
Manufacturing has nearly disappeared and growth has slowed substantially. And this is paired with an explosion of public and private debt. Since 1993, the national debt has increased from £300 billion to £2.5 trillion, while private debt has increased from £1.2 trillion to £2.7 trillion. Meanwhile, British labor has remained relatively highly paid compared to the rest of the world. Between strong labor unions and a relatively high minimum wage, British brands that rely on domestic talent find themselves increasingly less competitive. Which is a shame, because the United Kingdom has some of the most iconic brands on the planet. Brands take time to develop and embed themselves into culture. But once they're stuck in a population's psyche, it can be incredibly hard to get them out. Cadbury was founded in 1824 in Birmingham,
Oh my
England.
God.
Johnny
that
Walker was
long
founded in
ago?
1820 in Kilmarnock, Scotland. And Rolls-Royce was founded in 1906 in Derby, England.
Wow.
And they all benefited from the peak of the British Empire, where
Yeah.
trade moved in both directions. So the Brits would import diamonds and gold from South Africa, textiles from Hong Kong, and corn and wheat from America. But in return, they'd export Cadbury chocolates, Johnny Walker whiskey, and Rolls-Royce cars around the globe.
Nice.
Today, you can go almost anywhere, and those brands will be recognized and understood.
Facts.
That's prestige, something that India and Tata was lacking.
The issue of having the need to grow and the need to take a view that you'd grown in India in some cases with a fairly substantial market share, and that as a group we ought to look beyond the shores of India.
As India's wealth had grown, Tata looked to move up the food chain and target brands that mattered internationally and commanded strong margins. Their first move came in 2000. That's when Tata's global beverages division acquired the British tea company Tetley. Tetley was founded in 1837 in Yorkshire. They were the first company to sell tea in tea bags to the United Kingdom in 1953. By 1990, with a yearly production of more than 20 billion tea bags, they were one of the world's largest tea companies. This move was one of the earliest instances of an Indian company making a high-profile acquisition of a British brand. Tata acquired Tetley for $432 million.
Yeah.
And the acquisition made Tata the second largest tea company in the world, after Unilever, which owns Lipton.
The international
Okay.
expansion, though, was not without some controversy. And aside from the economic rationale, there was also emotional consequences. And I'm thinking here of the acquisition of Tetley Tea.
Yeah.
I assume there would be as well, but I think that's like dope. That's so dope that they just grew too big, and they had to look outside of the borders of India if they wanted to continue that growth, because you never want to limit your growth. When you're growing, you want to grow as big as you can, right? And so they looked outside the borders of India and acquired Tetley Tea, this incredibly famous British brand of tea, second biggest tea makers in the world. Or tea brand in the world. That's truly, truly awesome. And they acquired them for $432 million. Jesus.
Idea of a beloved British tea brand being bought by an Indian company must have stirred some hearts in England.
If they did, it was quite quiet and dignified.
And despite new ownership, Tetley could still trade on its English heritage. That meant that Tata just bought a ton of market share in the UK, Canada, and the US. Tata could also lower expenses at Tetley. After the acquisition, the company consolidated their operations, reduced the number of employees, closed some factories, and streamlined the supply chain. As a result of these measures, Tetley's expenses were cut by as much as 10%. In 1999, Tetley's revenue was $736 million. Their profit margin was about 10%, meaning that their expenses were about $662 million.
Dang.
That means that Tata was able to find approximately $66 million of additional profit in the company that they acquired.
That's
When you
nice.
consider the $432 million acquisition price, they got back 15% of that cost in the first year just through those savings. It was a smashing
That's
success, and it
crazy.
whet Tata's appetite for more international expansion. In the mid-2000s, Corus Steel, Europe's second largest steel producer, was struggling and losing money. Since it was primarily based in the UK and the Netherlands, it faced particularly high operational costs from its labor and regulatory compliance. These high costs were exacerbated as the market for steel became increasingly global, and producers based in countries with lower labor costs and less regulation could price Corus out of the market. A lack of vertical integration compounded Corus's issues. Unlike their competitors, Corus did not control access to the raw materials required for making steel, meaning that fluctuations in the commodity prices associated with key materials like iron ore and coal could sink the company. Tata Steel solved both problems. They purchased Corus Group in 2007 for $12 billion, a landmark deal for the steel industry and the largest acquisition by an Indian company at the time. Upon taking over, they ran the same playbook. They shut down plants and laid off workers. But they also invested in raw materials assets from Canada and Mozambique to secure their European operations. Back home in India, Tata Steel was already vertically integrated. The company owned iron ore and coal mines in the Indian states of Jharkhand and Odisha, which provided them security from commodity price fluctuations. Now, thanks to the Chorus acquisition, Tata's cost-competitive steel had distribution networks set up in Europe. In short order, Tata became the 5th largest steel producer in the world, but they had one more move to make.
The signs.
How big is Tata, bro? How big of a company is Tata? How much is Tata worth? How many things do they do? How many different categories do they have their hand in? Or pots that they, I don't know how to say it. How many different things do they have a hand in? This is truly sensational, bro. Like, they are making humongous acquisitions, and they are absolutely figuring them out very quickly and making them more successful. It's like they already got the plan in place. They already got the blueprint in place. All they got to do is buy the company, put the blueprint on, and then bam. Incredible acquisition.
We're everywhere, but now it's official, we are in a recession.
2008 was a tumultuous year for the economy. The housing market collapse created one financial crisis after another.
The federal agency that takes over unsound banks is the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the same people who guarantee that depositors won't lose their money.
Ford was one of the companies most affected by the Great Recession. In 2008, the company lost $14.6 billion. Sales in the United States declined by 20%, and the company's cash reserves dwindled by $21 billion. The only way for Ford to avoid bankruptcy was to take on loads of long-term debt, lay off 30,000 employees, and sell some of its assets. Tata saw the opportunity and pounced. They acquired Jaguar and Land Rover from Ford in a $2.3 billion all-cash, no-stock transaction. It marked Tata Motors' entry into the premium luxury car market, but automotive insiders thought that they were taking a risky gamble. Here's what people were missing. Tata was already a manufacturing partner to Jaguar Land Rover before acquiring the IP in 2008. Back in 2004, Tata Motors had begun to produce Jaguar and Land Rover vehicles under license from Ford. And prior to that, they'd learned to scale manufacturing through producing their own vehicle, the Tata Indica.
The faith you put in your people to do this, and case in point was on the Indica, conventional wisdom said that you couldn't enter the car business without having a collaboration, and certainly to think of designing a car domestically and producing it was an unheard of thing.
The Indica was introduced in December 30th of 1998. It was the first passenger hatchback from Tata Motors, which had previously produced station wagons and SUVs. But importantly, the Indica was one of India's first indigenously developed passenger cars. It was Tata's engineers that had developed the design for the vehicle and how to manufacture it. By 2008, they'd produced more than 1.2 million vehicles and hit annual sales numbers as high as 140,000 per year. The car was even exported to other countries, including the United Kingdom, South Africa, and Sri Lanka. This feat of manufacturing and engineering gave Tata the confidence to jump into larger car markets. Now, with Jaguar and Land Rover, they had the iconic car brands to make it happen. For the past few years, Ford had been underinvesting in these companies as it struggled with cash flow. Immediately, Tata infused substantial funds into Jaguar Land Rover to modernize and expand their production facilities. They also marketed the luxury brands to the growing Indian upper class. In short order, Jaguar Land Rover became profitable, and today it's one of the world's fastest growing luxury car brands. Now, Tata is not alone in turning the tables on its former colonial rulers. Numerous Indian conglomerates have leveraged their relatively low costs of labor and raw materials to improve the margins of British brands that have stalled out over the last 3 decades. Mahindra Group acquired BSA Motorcycles. Royal Enfield was taken over by the India-based Eicher Motors in 1994. India's United Breweries Group purchased Hobson's, a British brewery. But perhaps nothing epitomizes this changing of the guard more than the current Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Rishi Sunak.
Yeah.
It's obvious to most that he's of Indian descent. But what less people know is that he is the son-in-law of the founder of another Indian conglomerate, Infosys.
What?
His time in office will surely deepen the economic ties between these two countries and open the door for more mergers and acquisitions. We'll be watching how this plays out in the years ahead, as it supports our thesis that India is poised to win the 21st century. We made a video breaking down their population, geopolitics, and business climate. Go check it out to learn more.
Bro, India is literally incredible, dog. India has figured it out. And the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the results. India is growing rapidly. These companies in India are starting to acquire different big brands outside of India. God dang it. India might just win the 21st century. That's going to be insane. That's all we have. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. If you enjoyed that video, make sure you go ahead and check out that one as well. You'll love it. I'm telling you. But I'll catch you on the next one. It's your boy Neal. Out.